TT, 40 years on the air.
Crosses the line, and away he goes on his sixth and final lap.
Feels it in, changes down one, gives us a wave. Thank you. Much appreciated as well.
TT, 40 years on the air.
The year 1991. The island was rocked by the collapse of the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. The Manx Electricity Authority announced it was to build a new power station at Peel. Gay activists protested at the Tynwald ceremony against the island's anti-homosexuality laws. An appeal fund was launched for the restoration of the Gaiety Theatre, and plans were revealed for modernising the Villa Marina. Internationally, the first Gulf War was fought and won in 100 hours. Terry Waite was released in Beirut. The former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. Mikhail Gorbachev's rule ended in the Soviet Union. Robert Maxwell's business empire collapsed after his death at sea, and the Birmingham Six were released by the appeal court in London. Meanwhile, at the TT of 1991, Steve Hislop, after his disappointments of 1990, was in determined mood. In practice, he'd smashed his own course record unofficially at 124.36 miles per hour on his 750 Honda. Teammate Carl Fogarty, just contesting the Formula One, was second fastest at 123.66 miles per hour, with Yamaha rider Brian Morrison third at 120.37 miles per hour. And Joey Dunlop had clocked his first 120-plus lap, 120.16 miles per hour. In the race, Hislop set off at a storming pace. He lapped at 122.83 miles per hour to lead Fogarty by 9.4 seconds, with Morrison third. Joey limped into the pits in 21st place and retired after a fork seal broke in the first mile and spewed out oil. By the end of lap 2, Hislop had a new course record at 123.48 miles per hour and was in front of his teammate. By the fourth lap, the Scotsman's lead had increased to 31 seconds, and at the end of the 6 laps, he crossed the line 1 minute 16 seconds ahead of Fogarty, having set a new race record at exactly 121 miles per hour. Trevor Nation finished third but was later excluded for an oversized fuel tank, bringing Morrison into the top 3. Dave Leach in a Yamaha scored a start-to-finish victory once again in the Super Sport 400 race, increased to 4 laps and run concurrently with the ultra-lightweight 125 TT. Fastest in practice, Barry Woodland dramatically became a non-starter when he came off his road bike at the bottom of Barragaru during a sighting lap before the roads closed. At the end of the opening lap, it was Leach, Brian Reed and Hislop in third, a further 37.73 miles, and Steve Hislop had moved into second place, with Moody having moved into third in front of Morrison. Hislop closed to 11.8 seconds of the leader at the end of lap 3, but Dave Leach pulled out all the stops on the final lap, equaling his own lap record of 109.39 miles per hour to win from Steve Hislop by 16.4 seconds, with Jim Moody in third spot. Honda-mounted Robert Dunlop scored his third successive record-breaking win in the 125 race. He dominated the practice sessions and topped the leaderboard at 106.57 miles per hour. But at the end of the first of the 4 laps, it was big brother Joey who led Robert by 22 seconds, with Philip McCann in third place. By the time the leaders came into the pits at half distance, Joey was 19.8 seconds up on his brother, and the leaderboard was unchanged. Joey had a problem, however. A slow pit stop in which the petrol breather pipe was broken robbed him of his chance of his 14th TT win. Yet at the end of the third lap, he trailed by only 4.4 seconds. Robert had the message, however, and with a new lap record of 106.71 miles per hour, he took the checkered flag to complete a hat-trick of wins, 39.4 seconds ahead of Joey, with Bob Heath third. Steve Hislop topped the practice leaderboard for the 1991 Junior 250, the one he wanted to win, at 115.6 miles per hour. But at the end of the first lap, it was Philip McCallan who led with a lap of 114.73 miles per hour to lead Brian Reed and Robert Dunlop. Hizzy was fourth, followed by Locker and Joey. By the end of the second lap, two of the favourites, Steve Hislop and Ian Locker, were out, within 100 yards of each other at Union Mills. McCallan was leading by 1 second from Reed, with Robert Dunlop in third. But exiting the pits, Robert held the advantage over Philip, and at the end of the penultimate lap he was 5.6 seconds in front of Brian Reed, with McCallan a further second down. On the final circuit, Brian Reed came off at the exit of Handley's Corner. Philip McCallan clocked up the fastest lap of the race, but Robert held on to complete the double by 5.8 seconds. With Steve Haslett up to third, Ian Newton fourth, Joey fifth, and Dave Leach sixth. Dave Leach was all out for a Supersport double in the 600 race, despite the fact that Steve Hislop had topped the practice leaderboard at 115.89 miles per hour. At the end of the first lap, Dave Leach led Steve Hislop by 1.2 seconds, with Bob Jackson third. By the end of the second lap, Hislop led Leach by 8.6 seconds, with third place now taken by Steve Cull, having pushed Jackson back to fourth. Hislop increased his lead by the end of the third lap over Cull to 34.8 seconds, with Jackson slotting into third. Dave Leach was fourth, but in trouble and forced to retire at the pits. Steve Hislop won his second race of the week by 30 seconds from Steve Cull, with Bob Jackson retaining his third place. With the fastest ever race speed, Steve Hislop on a Honda led the senior from start to finish and notched up his second hat-trick of wins, equalling the record of Mike Halewood and Joey Dunlop. His opening lap of 121.09 miles per hour put him 99.8 seconds in front of Joey, who'd taken over Carl Fogarty's RVF Honda. Trevor Nation had the Norton in third place. Steve increased his lead over Joey at the end of lap 2 to 18.8 seconds, and the only change to the leaderboard was that Morrison took third place from Nation. The difference between the leaders at the end of lap 3 was 29 seconds, with Morrison still holding third place. By the time lap 4 had been completed, the gap between Hislop and Dunlop was 49.8 seconds. The top two men were separated by 1 minute 4 seconds at the end of lap 5. The question on the final circuit was, could Hislop catch his teammate on the road? He did, to take victory as they crossed the line side by 2 minutes 20 seconds. Philip McCallan moved up to third place to make it a Honda 1-2-3. Brian Morrison, after wiring up a loose exhaust, took fourth, followed by Nick Jeffries and Bob Jackson. Mick Boddice and Dave Wells gave Honda their first sidecar victory with a start-to-finish win in Sidecar Race A, and went on to complete the double by taking Race B, notching up his 9th Sidecar TT victory, equalling the record of Siegfried Schautzu and Dave Saville. Neil Smith and Steve Mace took runner-up place in Race A, followed by Artie Oates and Stuart Pitts. In Race B, it was Jeff Bell and Keith Cornwell who claimed second position, with Dave Molyneux and Carl Ellison completing the leaderboard. And that was 1991 at the TT.
KLF is gonna rock you. Hard. KLF is gonna rock you. KLF is gonna rock you. KLF is gonna rock you.
The year 1992. Tynwald decided that the Isle of Man should have a new general hospital at Ballymona. Manx Gaelic became part of the curriculum in the island schools. The island's anti-homosexuality laws were repealed. The last death sentence for murder was passed in a Manx court. A dramatic increase in violent crime was revealed by the Chief Constable, and Douglas 2000 was launched. Internationally, it was announced that the Prince and Princess of Wales were to separate. A cargo plane crashed into a housing complex after takeoff from Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport. Los Angeles was devastated by race riots. Windsor Castle was badly damaged by fire. Mike Tyson was jailed for 5 years for rape. And Nigel Mansell won the Formula One World Championship. Meanwhile, at the TT in 1992, Steve Hislop returned to the TT Formula One race, riding a 588 NRS Norton, and topped the practice leaderboard at 121.38 miles per hour, with Honda-mounted Philip McCallan second fastest at 120.48 miles per hour, and Carl Fogarty on the Yamaha third at 120.05 miles per hour. These three led the race at the end of the opening lap, but in reverse order. Joey Dunlop, Mark Farmer and Robert Dunlop completed the top six. The top five remained the same by the time lap 2 had been completed, but Nick Jeffries was sixth, Robert Dunlop having retired the Norton at Kirkmichael with a seized engine. At half distance, Fogarty led McCallan by 37 seconds, with Hislop 22 seconds down in third. Fogarty increased his lead at the end of the fourth lap to 46.6 seconds over McCallan, but Hislop moved closer to the second-place man. The gap was down to 15 seconds. Then, as often happens at the TT, drama struck on lap 5. Carl Fogarty turned into the pits in sixth place to retire. The new leader was McCallan by 18.8 seconds from Hislop. Joey Dunlop was third. On the final lap, Steve Hislop set the fastest lap of the race at 123.3 miles per hour, just 1.6 seconds outside his 1991 lap record, to close the gap to 12 seconds. But Philip McCallan won his first TT race at 119.8 miles per hour. Steve finished second, with Joey third. After his spill in the 1991 TT, Brian Reed scored a popular victory in the Supersport 400, leading from start to finish. At the end of the opening lap, he was 1.2 seconds ahead, and at the checkered flag, he was almost a minute from Philip McCallan and Steve Linsdell. Brian won at a record average speed of 110.5 miles per hour. Joey Dunlop on his 125 Honda finally achieved his ambition of equaling Mike Halewood's record of 14 TT wins, with a start-to-finish record-breaking ride in the 4-lap 125cc race, with younger brother Robert, winner of the last three ultra-lightweight races, chasing him hard all the way. At the end of the opening lap, Joey led Robert by 3.6 seconds, with Mick Lofthouse 26 seconds down in third place. Lap 2 saw Joey lead by just 0.2 seconds. Lofthouse was still third. Lap 3 saw Joey open the throttle a bit wider to lead his brother by 7.6 seconds. The final lap saw the brothers really going for it, flat out. Both lapped at over 108 miles per hour, but with Joey slightly faster, he won his 14th TT by 8.4 seconds from Robert. Lofthouse remained third. Looking for a victory in the race that had so far eluded him, Steve Hislop topped the practice leaderboard some 20-plus seconds faster than the 1991 winner Robert Dunlop, with Johnny Ray third. At the end of the opening lap, it was Brian Reed in front of Hislop, with Robert Dunlop third. The top three remained the same at half distance. On the final lap, Steve Hislop set the fastest lap of the race and actually led at Ramsey Hairpin at 117.51 miles per hour. But Brian Reed took his second win of the week by 3.2 seconds from Hislop, and the leaderboard was completed by Robert Dunlop. Although Nick Jeffries topped the practice sessions, it was McCallan who led at the end of the first lap of the four-lap Supersport 600 race from Bob Jackson and Johnny Ray. Steves, Hislop and Ward, along with Jeffries, completed the top six. Phillip further increased his lead on the second lap, with Jackson still holding second. But the two Steves swapped places, and by the time the third lap had been completed, McCallan had an advantage of over 40 seconds, this time from Hislop, who'd moved to second. Philip McCallan won his second race of the week by 22.4 seconds from Steve Hislop, despite the Scots setting a new lap record at 117.01 miles per hour. Steve Ward was a creditable third. Jeff Bell and Keith Cornbill achieved a personal ambition when they lapped at over 100 miles an hour in practice and proved during their winning ride in the sidecar race A that it was no fluke by setting a new record on their second circuit at 102.54 miles per hour. Jeff and Keith went on to win by 35.2 seconds from Eddie Wright and Pete Hill after Dave Saville and Nick Roach retired, with Mick Boddice and Dave Wells third. Bell and Cornbill went on to complete a sidecar double with a start-to-finish victory in Race B. Not as fast as the opening race, he was 0.6 of a second slower. The double winners went on to win by 33 seconds from Mick Boddice and Manx crew Dave Molyneux and Carl Ellison. What a tremendous climax to TT Week 1992, when the senior TT provided a race-long battle between Steve Hislop on the Norton, the White Charger, and Carl Fogarty on the Loctite Yamaha. They swapped the lead practically every lap and finished up setting a course record lap and the fastest ever speed between them. At the end of the first lap, Carl led Steve by 1.2 seconds, with Robert Dunlop on a Norton just 3.4 seconds down in third place, and all three had lapped at over 121 miles per hour. At the end of the second circuit, Steve led Carl by 2.8 seconds, with Robert some 15 seconds down in third place. By half distance, the lead had changed again. Carl had a 1 second advantage over Steve, with Robert still in third place. Lap 4 saw Hislop back in front by 7.4 seconds. For the first time in the race, the lead didn't change at the end of the fifth and penultimate lap, and the gap between first and second was now 5.4 seconds, with Robert Dunlop still holding on to third, brother Joey having retired on the previous lap. And so to the final lap. Fogarty set a new absolute lap record in 18 minutes 18.8 seconds, equal to 123.61 miles per hour. Hislop was just a second slower and also inside the old record, and took victory by 4.4 seconds to give Norton their first senior TT win since 1961. And that was 1992 at the TT. The year 1993. 10 visiting bikers were killed during TT fortnight. The NATO sea bombing range off Derby was closed. Birching was finally repealed in Manx law. The Manx Electric Railway celebrated its centenary. The giant airship building hangar at Derby was demolished, and people who lost money in the SIB shared a £4.5 million payout. Internationally, the oil tanker Brer caused a pollution disaster in the Shetland Islands. 2 boys were charged with the murder of toddler Jamie Bulger. A Northern Ireland Peace Pact was signed. The UK ratified the Maastricht Treaty. Boris Yeltsin crushed a rebellion by hardliners in Moscow, and there was a huge death toll at the end of the Waco siege in Texas. Meanwhile, in the TT of 1993, Ducati-mounted Mark Farmer led the Formula One TT at the end of the opening lap with what was to be the fastest lap of the race, 120.58 miles per hour. He was 3 seconds ahead of Nick Jeffries, with Philip McCallan, who'd been fastest in practice despite the shoulder injury he'd sustained in the Northwest 200, in third. However, Farmer struck trouble on the second lap and came into the pits in 4th place with rear sprocket problems and retired. Jeffries led by 5.6 seconds from Steve Ward, who had a 0.2 of a second lead over McCallan. At half distance, Jeffries led by 7 seconds and continued to increase his lead to 15.2 seconds at the checkered cloth, scoring a popular first TT win from Philip McCallan and Steve Ward, who took a terrific 3rd place. It was 10 years since Nick had won the Senior Manx Grand Prix. Jim Moody had topped the practice leaderboard in the Supersport 400, followed by fellow Scot Ian Duffus and the 1992 winner Brian Reed, all on Yamahas, with the highest-placed Honda rider Ian King in 7th place. At the end of the first lap, practice form was confirmed as Moody led Duffus by 15.2 seconds, with Reed a further 15 seconds down. Moody, with a new lap record at 112.4 miles per hour on the second lap, still led Duffus, but Steve Linsdell took 3rd place from Reed. The Glaswegian gradually increased his lead over the last 2 laps to win his first TT by exactly 1 minute from Ian Duffus, with Linsdell filling in the final podium place. Moody made it 2 wins in a week when he took the win in the Supersport 600cc race from Bob Jackson and Simon Beck in what was a start-to-finish second victory. Joey Dunlop rewrote the history books with a start-to-finish victory in the 125 TT, taking his total of TT wins to 15, 1 more than Mike Halewood. Younger brother Robert was 2nd throughout, and veteran Bob Heath held 3rd place all the way. Joey's race win was at a record speed of 107.26 miles per hour. Brian Reed scored his 5th TT win and a start-to-finish win in the Junior TT, followed home by Jim Moody and Joey Dunlop. Philip McCallan, who in a close dice on the road with Dave Milling completely forgot his pit stop and eventually ran out of fuel at Ballacry, caused the only drama. Philip McCallan on the RVF Honda won his first senior TT when he took the honours in the race delayed from the Friday to the Saturday because of bad weather, lapping at over 120 miles per hour from the standing start to lead fellow Ulsterman Mark Farmer and Joey Dunlop. Formula One victor Nick Jeffries, Simon Beck and Robert Holden, with Robert Dunlop having retired at Crosby, completed the top 6. McCallan's lead was up to nearly half a minute at the end of lap 2, this time from Joey, as Farmer had retired at Hilbury out of petrol. And with Robert Holden retiring at Ballacrane, there was a shake-up on the leaderboard. Nick Jeffries was now 3rd, followed by Steve Ward, Simon Beck and Jason Griffiths. The only change on the leaderboard at half distance was that Beck took 4th place from Ward. Joey had a slight problem with oil on the machine and dropped to 5th place at the end of the 4th lap, as McCallan's lead went to over a minute from second placeman Jeffries. Next of the leaderboard men to retire was Simon Beck, whose race finished at Glen Helen. Philip McCallan's week ended on a high note, with victory from Nick Jeffries by 45 seconds, as Steve Ward scored another magnificent 3rd place from Jason Griffiths. Ian Simpson and Johnny Ray, with a slowing Joey Dunlop taking 11th place. Hopes of a local victory were high in the sidecar races, as Dave Molyneux and Carl Ellison were fastest in practice, faster than the 1992 double winner Jeff Bell and Keith Cornwell. One of the favourites, Mick Boddice and passenger, went out on the opening lap when the engine blew on the descent to Craignabar. Molyneux led at the end of the lap by 0.4 of a second from Dave Saville with Eddie Wright in third place. The Manx pairing set a new lap record on the second circuit at 21 minutes 42.6 seconds, 104.27 miles per hour, and now led Saville by 42.2 seconds. Wright remained third. Both Molyneux and Saville lapped at over 103 miles per hour on the final circuit, the Manxman winning by 25.4 seconds. Dave Molyneux and Carl Ellison completed a sidecar double, the first ever by a Manxman, with another start-to-finish victory, this time over Eddie Wright and Peter Hill and Richard Crossley and Molly's future passenger, Colin Hardman. And that was 1993 at the TT.
TT, 40 years on the air.
Crosses the line, and away he goes on his sixth and final lap.
Peels it in, changes down one, gives us a wave. Thank you. Much appreciated as well.
TT, 40 years on the air.